Hey everybody,
What's up, guys?
Matt and Mike doing a IronTrap podcast. We have our first live audience.
Yeah, our buddy George is sitting in with us today.
He's hanging out. We were at the mill doing some upgrades and looking at some future upgrades,
Yeah.
and George was here helping us out with that. And he decided to hang out because he doesn't want to go home yet. So
He's trying to beat rush hour traffic.
yeah, sure. So on the topic of the mill, that's what our what we're going to be discussing today is we got a million and one questions
Yeah.
about how, why, where,
And we can
whatever.
talk about some plans a little bit that have
Yeah.
evolved since we put the video out. I've changed a little bit since
Yeah.
we put the video out.
So any housekeeping stuff?
Trying to think. Not really. Trying to think off the top of my head.
So we have handful of
There's some parts robot shirts left.
robot shirts. Oh yeah, by the way, I gave my nephew a medium.
I'll mark that down.
And I gave Will, that delivered the shoe arching machine, a large white,
Okay.
because that's all we had left was
Yep.
large white. So yeah, we have a little bit of the parts robot shirts left in select sizes and
Yes.
styles. So if you're interested, you can grab one of those.
I will be ordering. There's some flathead shirts that are out of stock in white, long sleeve, and whatever. I'll be putting together a merch order here in a little bit because we got to get some sweatshirts in stock, some of that stuff before we hit winter in Carlisle and fall.
And as mentioned in one of the videos, we're not doing the Indy custom car revival, which is about to go on because the car is sitting in the upholstery shop.
Yep.
Did not get everything timed as I had hoped. We got close, but we didn't make it. And at this rate, with them being backed up on their own work, I don't even know if it's going to make Gasket Goons for their spring/summer
Yeah.
show, which is a little bit of a bummer to me. So I'm just hoping I can drive the thing this freaking summer at
Yeah.
this rate.
We're going to shoot for wheels of time.
Maybe.
We're just going to keep, in 3 months, we'll be like, we're going to shoot for fall gasket goons.
Yeah, so I really want to drive the thing. Even with everything going on, I don't know if the stainless window frames will even be done, polished and glass in them in time. We have the glass, but at this point, I just like to get a windshield in it,
Yeah.
get all the pieces sprayed black, and
Start driving it.
Start driving it. So, anyways, that's what's going on with that. Pete's car left.
Yeah.
He took that home, so he is driving that some. I don't know if he's going to have that at the York Street Rod National show or whatever. He still has some maintenance to do to that car, but he's going to be definitely driving it locally, have it at some events. We're hoping to have it at the Macungie Wheels of Time show and some other ones. So you may start, if you're local, you may see it around. Pete's
Yeah.
car is legendary in this area, so it'll be
A lot of people will be confused because no one's seen it with a top ever since Pete's owned
with
it.
a proper top.
Yeah,
Yes.
proper top. So people would be like, "Oh, look at that new." Like, wait, what? Did Pete get a new car?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, it's the
so-
same one.
And he hasn't driven it in close to 10 years, so
Yeah,
that is
it had like a 15 inspection sticker on it, I think.
something like that. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, so we have a guy asking to come at 4.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes, no.
Yeah, we should be done by then.
This is our life. We're
Constantly juggling messages and
yeah.
phone calls and emails
Yeah.
and
Anyways, we have a bunch of really good estates coming up shortly. Some pretty fun,
Yeah.
interesting ones lined up, and we're doing a little bit of traveling coming up. So there'll be more of that adventure stuff. We apologize. There's not a ton of project car updates, but Steve is working away on stuff
yes.
in the background. Just I'm not able to help as much right now. So we will get some updates on cars going. So the topic for today again is the
The IronTrap parts mill.
parts mill. Yeah, so we're calling it the mill.
Yes.
There's a really cool. I don't know if he answered me back, but
He did. He said we could share it as long as we give him credit.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So Tim is a follower of ours. He messages on Instagram a lot and different stuff. Tattoo artist, correct? And also a talented artist. He gave us a really cool. Or emailed it to us or whatever.
Yeah, he was like, I'm going to draw you guys like something for the mill. And I told him a cool idea would be like a reverse wood chipper, like a bunch of guys shoving parts into the building and then a car is rolling out the other end. So I'll put it up here on the screen. He did a killer design of me, Matt, and Moondog and the mill building and I think it's a 32 Roadster rolling out the end of the mill. So it's It's the IronTrap parts mill.
Yeah, so we've been trying to kind of
Yeah.
envision everything that's going on now that we've had it for a few weeks.
3 weeks,
3 weeks.
something like
A
that.
lot has happened already. But now it's kind of sinking in, and we're able to kind of like. I've been very overwhelmed. The first week I was not sleeping a lot
Yeah.
because it was just a little scary, exciting, everything. But we've had a lot of people ask us, like, how did you find it? Like, we talked about it a lot in the podcast. Like, we keep a lot of stuff kind of under our hat because of a lot of people watch our videos, and a lot of just can cause some trouble,
Yeah.
so to speak. Not trouble, just so we don't talk about stuff like that. This was going on for quite a while, and sometimes when we do estates, we try and keep stuff private because the family wants to be private. We
Yep.
want to be private about
The old
it. So,
adage, you don't count your chickens before they hatch.
yeah, especially with something this big.
Large,
So,
yeah.
kind of a background. A lot of the comments we saw where people were like, "Oh man, it stinks you built that pole barn literally last year." So, kind of the background of all this is. And I think we said it in a podcast or a video.
We did mention a little bit of the background of how we found the property or whatever. We mentioned it a little bit in the actual video.
Okay,
Talked about how our viewer told us about it.
So anyways, we'll cover that again
Yeah.
just quickly. 2020-ish, a viewer contacted us and he even commented in that video, I know. He commented or emailed us. Basically, he was a patron of the Agway, what it was last, and said, hey, they're closing, Agway's going out of business. That property would be amazing for you guys. So of course, growing up in this area, I knew it right away. I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. So I kind of was already, he was like, you should email the owner or call the owner. And he kind of like gave us the info. And I was like interested, but also I was like, I don't know what they're doing with it, what the plans are.
And I don't know if that point, if we were doing the parts business as full.
We were growing.
Well, I hadn't started working for you. I don't know if we did the Pittsburgh estate yet. We were growing, but not to that.
Whenever it was already in progress.
Yeah.
We were growing. It was already in my head that we were going in that direction. So I kind of was like, man, that would be really cool, blah, blah, blah. And they started cleaning the building out, and they were having auctions. They had like an online auction company that was selling the contents of the Agway. And
all of our pegboard hooks.
All of our pegboard hooks, you jerks. Whoever owns them, give them back to us.
No, please don't. We found enough.
We have enough.
I want to mention that. We did mention that we need pegboard hooks. Please do not call or email us. We have like 3,000 of them now. We are good for a while.
We should be good for a little while. We will let you know if we need more.
Yes.
We appreciate the help. We didn't expect that Joanne's was conveniently closing at the same time,
Yes.
so we got a lot. So I kind of was keeping an eye on the property, and then it went for sale. It went up for sale for like borderline $1 million.
Yeah, as close to $1 million as you could possibly.
Yeah, in the very, very beginning, I think it was, and obviously, as much as people rumor mill that we're wealthy or I'm wealthy, I am not. I have a lot of neat old shit, but I don't have a lot of money.
Yes.
In the grand scheme of things, so I couldn't buy that property.
And we both felt that we were also we felt it was very overvalued for what it was.
What it was, the work it needed. I mean, I knew that property. I've watched it kind of age over the years is a good way to put it. So it was just, out of reach. So I kind of, once I saw that, I was like, no way, if only. And I just kept checking on it weekly, monthly, watching the real estate sites. I would scroll the pictures and just zoom in and just daydream. And over the next, it might have been 21 when it actually went for sale, roughly. And then I just watched it. And in the beginning, it took a little while, but every so often the price went down a little. And then it kind of I don't know, for a year or two, it still was too high, for what I could spend on it. And then our parts business in the background has been growing and growing. And then we got wind, I think we talked about a podcast, that the warehouse that we were renting, there was a scare where the company tried to buy it a year before they did buy it. And we were like, oh crap, we might have to move out. And then I kind of was looking at the mill again more closely, but it was still priced a little higher than I thought it should be. And then fast forward, another year went by. And then the warehouse was definitely getting sold. I looked at the mill and was like, man, this would be perfect.
Yeah.
But the whole concern is that the property needs a lot of work. Now
Yes.
the buildings are solid, the bones are good, but it needed a lot of work for us to like move right in tomorrow and continue our business. And we knew that wasn't realistic. So the time it would take to move our stuff there and get it all set up wasn't realistic. The cost was still a little high, and things take a while when you're buying commercial property. So it was like we decided the quickest way to guarantee that we could get up and running was to put a pole barn on this property here where the shop was.
Yep.
I knew from day one, we didn't talk about it in the video, but we knew that we weren't it wasn't a long-term fix. It was something that was maybe 1 to 3 years, 1 to 5 years. I was already looking for commercial properties, but I just couldn't find something on a price range and that I liked. I wanted something that was cool and old, and also wanted something that was very close. I did not want to go even Pottstown, the town adjacent where the warehouse was. It was still 15, 20 minutes depending on the traffic.
Yeah.
So it was a pain in the butt if we needed a part. So
And also, we were aware that building was not going to be big enough. Everyone comes up to us and they're like, man, you really should have built one bigger. It's like, we're well aware we should have built something bigger. We just, time, space. If we would have went bigger, we would have had to go into the hill behind, and it's like more dollar signs. It's like, we built what we built for a reason. We know we needed bigger. We know we need more room.
I know I play a big dummy on TV.
Yeah.
But I do have a little bit of I do
Thought
have
process.
a little bit
Yeah.
thought process and vision ahead. So yes, the building was basically as big as I could go that made sense financially, and also the biggest we could go on this property that made sense. So we did what we could because we knew we could get basically everything in there. We could work out of it. We maximized the space. We just didn't know at that point. I kind of the pricing of the mill had slowed down on them dropping the price, so I kind of wrote it off a little bit, like I can't afford it or whatever. So we built the new building knowing it's too small.
Nope.
And we knew we could work out of it in the meantime. So that's basically what happened. And then we built the building last summer. We got everything in, and then it was like end of last summer or the fall, they started like aggressively dropping the price on the mill, and it went down. I don't know if it went down 100,000 or something, or
I'm trying to remember, because
50,000. It was like big chunks. It wasn't like they dropped it $5,000.
Yeah,
it was like,
it dropped a considerable amount.
So what happened is it started getting in the realm of me being able to maybe afford it and justify.
Or even just make an offer
yes
to get the process started.
I guess I'm new at buying property.
Yeah.
Commercial property. It was first time. So like I was thinking of cars. Like I put us in the same shoes. I'm like, if a guy came to buy a $50,000 car and offered me 15,000, we
Fuck
chase
off.
him out of here, But like, I didn't know with a property, sometimes with property, people just like, I guess because you work through real estate agents, there's like this buffer. So it was like, you could just put some wild lowball offer.
Yeah,
in.
and also commercial property sells a lot different than residential because there's so much commercial property available. The prices usually sell for less than what's there. Housing market, especially in our area, houses sell for list price or more. Very rarely do they take lower offers because it's so crazy right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, can we send them an offer, or are we going to be told to like never talk to them again?
I think it was a little before Hershey. The price got dropped again, and I was like, man, this is in the realm. So I had a real estate agent I used for my house that my brother has used, but I didn't have like a undying connection to him.
Yeah.
So I remember I started looking online for like a commercial real estate agent, and then I remember that, if you guys remember, we did a video.
2020.
Might have been earlier than that.
Yeah, it was 2020 with the Model A.
Oh, I thought it was earlier than that.
Yeah, it was right around COVID.
Oh, okay. Anyways, we did a video where we went kind of locally and got a AA truck that was sitting in like a garage, that was super cool.
Did you go with for that one?
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. And a real estate agent actually that followed our stuff a little bit and is local, and it was in one of the local car clubs. He actually just cold called us and said, hey, I'm doing this estate that's kind of like a gut and remodel, and there's an old car, and it's the only thing of value that's kind of on the property. and he graciously gave us the lead. We bought the truck, made a couple bucks on it, bought an old, not great, but an old Harley, like 70s
I forgot about that.
Italian Harley. We sold that to Iron Man.
Oh, really?
His father bought it for me.
I
'Cause
didn't
his father
realize
likes
that.
like old Harleys or something.
I didn't
don't know.
realize
It was
that.
really
That's
cheap.
so funny.
Anyways, so I thought of him. So this is a good example of paying it forward. You know, real estate agents are probably the best at that, like patience game. So
Yes.
I hit him up, said, "Hey, you did me right when we bought that truck. I'm looking at this property. Could you help me out?" So I ended up going to look at the property. This was the first time I ever like went in the buildings.
Yeah, we drove by it a bunch because, like, when we take
my
cars
God.
for drives, we would end up over that direction and be like, let's go take a look and see what's happening.
And any of my friends that like live kind of locally or comes for Sunday service and we'd go get pizza or go do whatever, I would always drive them by. There's that, and there's a couple other properties I've always had my eye on. So I
Yes.
would give them a little tour, like, man, someday.
I want to buy this building.
Yeah. So that was the building that I would drive a lot of them by and show them and whatever. And then I was finally like, okay, it's in the realm. So I went and looked at it and walked around everything by myself, basically.
Yeah.
And
I got lots of photo updates throughout the
yes.
when he was there.
So I could tell it was really cool, but the biggest thing that was not exciting was a lot of the space was not super usable as is.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized two things, good and bad. A, I realized after walking through the property, most any traditional business, it was not a good fit. Like, so if you're thinking of somebody who wanted to make apartments or wanted to turn it into a, whatever, it needed like crazy amount of work to, like, if you were making that, trying to turn that into apartments, it would take a lot of work to like get it to a
Definitely
usable. On top of the property being old, there's like the way the mill with the grain bins with the clock tower is those grain bins are built like all the way into the third floor. Like you'd have to like do some major deconstruction to make that all work. So I was like, well, this is an upside. This is one of the reasons probably the property hasn't sold is most people walk in here like, yeah, great, it's 3 floors, but I can't use like any of it.
Yeah.
All the machines, all the, stuff that's in there. If you aren't into old stuff like we are, like the old scales, a lot of the old stuff that's around the property, you'd be like, nope, no good. You know, the rail car building, as we call it, the old original mill, most people, even when I was going through the process of buying it, they're like, why don't you just knock it down? I'm like, no, I'd hate to knock a 100-plus-year-old building down. So, but I also saw that it needed a lot of maintenance. The big thing I noticed was most of the stuff was pretty dry.
Yep.
You went in the basement of the store area and it was dry. It wasn't like moldy or, the place had been vacant at that point for 4 years roughly. And everything was dry. It wasn't moldy.
Doesn't have that musty, gross smell.
Just smells like old fertilizer and whatever. It smells like an old hardware feed store.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain that smell.
It has a smell.
It has a unique scent. So I noticed all that, looked around. The other concern was the property, I guess it's Agnes. Is that the hurricane from the 70s?
Yes.
Because of Agnes, was that what it was?
72.
72, there you go.
We asked the old guy in the room.
Yeah, slightly old.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Not that
Well,
old.
I
Yeah.
know.
So Agnes had happened, and that area got flooded because of a 100-year storm. And that area of the town, and that after that storm, got set as like a 100-year floodplain. Well, if you're in the property and you know any of that stuff, that's a red flag, because if you hold a mortgage, a traditional mortgage, you have to get flood insurance, which can be like insanely. It's such a fucking scam. Insurance in general is a lot of it's a big scam. So you have to have flood insurance on top of your property insurance, which is like, I started pricing all that out and educating myself. I'm like, man, a traditional mortgage, like the insurance is going to be as much or more than your mortgage payment's going to be. So if anybody was looking at this and was going to borrow, that's an issue. So thinking about all of that stuff, I'm like, now it's making sense why no one even like, there was no action on this area. Now, the other thing is that little town that it's in is a very sleepy little town. Not a lot going on. Not a lot of businesses, mostly residential. But everything around it, my town that I live in, neighboring to it's been growing over the years, and there's a resurgence and fixing up the old buildings and all that stuff. So I was kind of ahead of the curve in looking at this. That's like, I feel like that area hasn't gotten touched by that yet. So again, if you're a traditional business owner, you would look at that and go, well, there's no foot traffic or tourism going on in that.
Very little road traffic even.
There's a factory there that during the day there's some trucks, but it's not great. You're not going to open a sandwich shop and expect people to stop there for lunch because there's not a lot going on.
Hence why the Agway probably closed, because it didn't have a lot of traffic coming in and out of it.
I think it was because of Tractor Supply and a lot of that
that's
stuff.
true. Tractor Supply did get built in town here right around.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that, and then Agway as a whole went out of business as a corporation.
Oh, did they? I didn't realize
they went out of business, and all the Agways closed basically. I think 99% of them. Yeah. So that didn't help, but so I saw that, and it's kind of like that was an opportunity that there's downsides, but for us it's an upside because our business does not rely on foot traffic.
Yep.
We do just fine. Now, this property is cool enough that you could have foot traffic, but again, that's me thinking 10 steps ahead. But like our initial problem is we need space, storage space, indoor, outdoor, whatever. We need an area we can grow into, and this was most definitely that. So there was some, I looked at all that stuff. I kind of just walked around and just looked at, I'm not qualified to look into a structural inspection on things or any of that. I kind of just looked around and like, would this work? Could it work? And a bunch of people I've told in person, it's a lot like when we look at early Fords and stuff like that. It's like, does it have the look? Does it have the bones? So like the DeLorean Roadster was a good example. A lot of people looked at that car and like, you're an idiot. But I saw that it had the vibe, it had the look, and I knew that we could, had good bones. This was the same thing. I'm like looking around. I'm like, I don't see anywhere there's like, I'm not falling through the floor. Yes, there's wood planks that have holes in them like any old barn. But like,
also like with the DeLorean car, a lot of people told you that. And then 2 to 3 years later, when the car's done, they went, wow, this is actually...
You scored on that thing. Yeah. I'm like, you were the same people in the Ham that were saying that the guy that bought that was an idiot and paid too much money. And
so the same thing will probably, any of the negative people that say we were dumb for buying the property.
There is a comment that I want to save.
Oh, that one.
I want to save. There's a comment on our YouTube. I have it saved in my phone. I actually...
I'll also put it up here on the screen because
I saved it because I want to use it. It's what drives me to do cool shit is people that naysayers. So...
it was on YouTube.
I have it saved because I've looked at it a few times and chuckled.
you cheer yourself up. You read it.
No, it's just like it's gonna drive me to. Oh man, where's it at? I have it. I have to read it because it's hilarious. Wow, you will be raising prices soon. Taxes, insurance, water and sewer, Wi-Fi, security, fire protection. Oh, all the repairs. I don't get it. Your target customer base is 70, 90 years old. Millennials do not buy 32 Fords. Hope you have life insurance for your family. You will look back at this as the biggest mistake in your history. Feeling awful for you. You had it all and you got greedy. Sorry for your decision. Going to be hard to watch this play out. Jerry Baldwin. Fuck you, Jerry.
That's a clip. I'm going to clip that out for you.
You can eat shit, motherfucker. So Jerry thinks that we're going to fail. We get a lot of people that do this. They comment on our stuff that they know better than us. Yes, we're young. We're still learning, but...
and we are dumb.
We are dumb. Yeah. But anything I've learned from older people that I am friends with in real life, or the people that I look up to, that you're taking risks. A lot of people anything that I've done in my life that people often comment like how quickly we've progressed. It's all calculated risk. I quit my fucking job at a job that most people would tell me was their dream job because I wanted to do this and we saw it was something like. We've done this stuff, you know. I dumped every cent I had into building out the garage and dropping money on inventory. And look how it's played out. Now people are like, oh, man, must be nice. Like, all those opportunities, if I talked about it in a podcast, my own father was like, you're crazy. Like, are you sure you want to do this? So, like, and I'm not saying that we're, like, super successful, but that's why things have progressed. So, like, me talking through this, I actually had some conversations with some, one of our friends that's an early Ford guy who's very successful in commercial real estate. Yeah. And at Hershey, actually, I like pulled him aside and had a conversation, and he was like, very, like, he was like, man, it's a fantastic idea. Like, anytime I made any decisions with property and land and made an investment and I told him what I thought I could buy it for, he's like, it's no brainer. You'd be stupid to not do this because the land that the property is sitting on, if you're patient, you'll make money on it. So like, for us, it was solving a problem, but also like playing that chess game of like, they're not making any more land. That's a conversation. I hear old guys say it all the time. They're not making any more land. The right time to buy a 32 Ford is when it's in front of you.
Yep.
They're almost always, you will make money if you sit on certain things in life, and land is probably the most important one of those. So,
and it's land in town that's on a roadway. It's easy to get in and out of.
Yep.
So even if, say, it does fail, the property itself is probably worth hopefully more than what we paid for the all of it, the buildings and everything.
Yeah, and my thought process was down the line, our area and specifically all the neighboring areas where Mike lives, adjacent to us a couple of towns over, like New York City, Philadelphia, all that stuff's like people are coming out of the city and it's slowly like they're buying up.
And we're like right here, it's Reading, Allentown, and Philly. We have three, bigger cities all encroaching in the same direction from all sides.
Yeah, and like there's like one we talk about a lot is Phoenixville is a little town. It used to be a rundown little town when I was younger that was like, it was just like an area you didn't want to hang out in. Super cheap rent, had a neat old movie theater, but for any other reason other than scoring drugs, you didn't really go there. Or go to the bar and get fights. You know, like that's pretty much it. So now, fast forward 20 years or more, 20 years, say, it is now like a mini Philadelphia. It's like a Manayunk.
Yeah, it's a very trendy place to live.
Trendy place. There's high-rise apartments. That's the place you go to take a date. There's nice restaurants and bars and stuff. So that like is all coming closer. So for me, I'm looking at this building maybe when I'm 80 years old and want to cash out.
Yep.
Some developer, just like our warehouse, might buy it and want to turn it into apartments. I don't know, but that's like everything I've learned from the older people that bought property and just sat on it and maybe rented it out or used it for themselves. That's how it almost always plays out. Yep. So for us, we can use it, but for that long-term goal, that's kind of like the thought process. So Jerry thinks we're going to fail, and that's, the most worst decision of my whole entire life. Yep. Jerry, you don't know me very well. I made some fucking terrible decisions in my life. Yeah. Terrible decisions. This is not it. There's much better ones we could talk about that I made. I've dated some girls that were way worse decisions in my life.
I will agree. I can, and worse financial decisions too.
Way worse financial decisions. Terrible, terrible things. So, anyways, that was the thought process behind it. Then when we were going through the process of buying...
actually what happened was he looked at it. We thought about it. There was some... Do you want to talk about the commercial licensing?
Well, no, there was... not even that. There was basically... I was still recovering from putting the new building up. So I went to look at it because at this point it was like, it's in the range, but let me go look at it. And I might walk in and like one of the walls is like falling in on one of the main buildings. Is like, well, that's it's gonna be $1 million to fix this place. It's out of my range. So I went to look at it just to be like, let me just stop obsessing over this place. If it's terrible, like I can just go on with my life and be fine. So I went there, looked at it, I'm like, it got worse. I was like, this is amazing. I love it. Walked in the one barn and there's neat old signs tacked on the wall. I'm like, this is a dream. Perfectly shitty property. So so basically I told the real estate agent, I'm like, look, I don't want to be that guy, be a time waster. I wanted to see it. I am interested, but I need to like recover from this property, get my, ducks in a row, so to speak. And that was kind of where we left it. There was some stuff, like Mike said, with the commercial stuff I needed to look into, and all of that, but we don't need to get into like all that stuff. But there's basically like the property had been vacant for a while. So there's some steps we need to go through to properly open a retail space, which I don't think will be very difficult. It's just red tape you need to go through. So looking at the commercial stuff, the property was already a retail space. It was already set up for warehousing and maybe light industrial. I forget. Basically, all the things that we do, it was already set up for that. Like
Yep.
they were selling bags of feed, we're selling bags of shit car parts. So it's all,
pretty good.
it's all the same stuff, just a little different.
It's the one-liners today.
I know.
You're doing pretty
Boom,
good.
boom, boom. I'm good. I got it.
We got to start doing podcasts in the afternoons and not mornings. You're a little slow and
I'm
groggy.
feeling fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The coffee's kicked in. I've
Yeah.
had 3 cups of coffee. So we basically, I said I have to wait. Well, the unfortunate thing on my part is when you give a real estate agent the scent, they are on you, man. So
Yeah.
it was like, they were like giving me the hard sell. And I started realizing so the whole winter went by and he was kind of like, Gary's a nice guy,
Yeah.
but he's also a real estate agent. They're the ultimate salesman. So
Yes.
he was like, he was not bothering me, just checking in regularly. And they were doing the whole like hard sell, like, oh man, there might be somebody after this property. And we're like talking amongst ourselves. We're like, nobody wants this fucking property.
Yeah, we're the only dumbasses.
It's like when I look at it's like when I started out and I was looking at that rusty piece of shit Model A coupe at an auction. I'm like, I'm the only asshole that's gonna actually buy this thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody else they want to scrap it. So I'm like, I kind of had a feeling that we were one of the only people.
Definitely.
And then the more we got into the process over the next like 6 to 8 months of me thinking about making an offer and blah blah blah, and I called the borough and started checking in on like some of the stuff, how hard is it going to be to, whatever. And I kind of started realizing it's not like the property was going to be hard if you wanted to turn it into like a, apartment complex.
Yeah.
But like for what we were looking to do, kind of use it as it was being used just a little differently. I'm like, might not be that bad. So I guess, yeah, then spring kind of came around.
Yep. And we were talking about it.
Yep.
And it was actually funny. We were talking about it the entire drive, not the entire drive, but we were driving to Chicago to buy a Model A Roadster and a 32 Roadster.
Reduced Roadster, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had Oklahoma lined up.
Yes. And so we were driving out and we're like, man, we need space to put all this stuff. We had Oklahoma lined up. We knew we were going to Minnesota already.
Mm-hmm.
We had like all this crazy stuff we were working on. And we're like,
And the building's packed to the brim.
we're like, we need to figure out storage space. We, our friend Ryan that we store some stuff in, we were going to store some stuff with him, but it's like, there's a lot. So we got to figure this out. And we're like, we're talking about the mill. And then we're driving home.
And I had been pussyfooting around with
Yeah.
the real estate agent, like kind of like answering his call and like, I might make an offer, but I was kind of bitching about different stuff. And I think I made some comments about like a price range I wanted to be, which was still, a pretty good bit lower than the asking price. And he said some comment, because real estate agents, I feel like they know a lot more than they tell you.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't think that might be out of the question. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right. So like he kind of in so many words, like the guy was wanting the deal.
So we were driving and talking through it and blah, blah, blah. And Matt's like, I should call Gary and just send an offer. So he calls Gary and he's like, yeah, well, they just lowered the price again. And Matt went, what? Pulls his phone out and brings it up on whatever, real estate website. And they had dropped it another
It
considerable
was basically
chunk.
what I was going to offer.
Yeah.
It was basically right in the what's funny is I think it went down $300,000 from when I looked at it or when
Yeah.
I first started talking to Gary to what we actually paid. And they were, you could tell like they wanted to move the
Yeah.
properties. They were aggressively dropping the price. No disrespect to them. It's just they were tired of paying the taxes, keeping the
And
property.
Not that the gentleman that owned the property put the price on it. The real estate agent that sold it brought in a firm to
Actually, I
appraise
think
it.
he had his own appraiser. in
Yeah.
there. So
But they
whoever
appraised-
it was a dick.
Yeah,
they way over.
I think the property probably would have actually sold for more if they had priced it more reasonably.
It got stale.
Yeah. When something sits on the market for that long for a high price, people go, what's wrong with the property?
And
they
I was
just-
doing the same thing.
We did the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so then I just called the real estate agent. Was just like, let me make an offer.
We basically were driving home, talked through it, and Gary was going to write up the paperwork to submit
That's
an offer.
how everything I do. If you haven't learned, everything I do in my life is so erratic. Like
Yeah, it's
I
so
literally
funny.
like we went from just Mike and I bullshitting as we're eating chips driving on the road to me being like, what, let me email him. And then next thing I know, I'm on the phone. And then next thing he's like,
I'll draft up a letter.
Yeah, he's like e-signing me documents and I'm filling it out on my phone and we're driving and I'm like, well, I guess I just made an offer on the property.
Yeah.
Like, and Yeah, so I think I made two offers.
You made an offer to buy.
I made an offer for cash to buy it outright.
Yes.
That was like my super low ball offer, and then
Yes.
I made an offer to do like a what they call a seller
Seller.
assist
Yeah.
or not seller
Seller
assist,
finance.
seller financing, where the seller actually kind of is like the mortgage company. And I got to give a shout out to my buddy Justin,
Yep.
our good friend Justin that we're have a little group chat with of friends. He just went through the process of buying like his first mechanic jobs, the owner of the garage, and he's kicking ass. And like while he was going through that process, he and I would go visit him at his house as he was running, working on cars out of his house. And we were pipe dreaming about our two properties.
Yeah.
And he kind of like made his happen and actually did it. And I didn't realize that the seller financing thing in commercial real estate is actually quite common. And he was like, dude, I just did this. Here's how I did it. And he's like, you might as well try it.
Yeah.
So we tried it. And the owner basically was like, what we got back is the owner is older, and he was looking to just cash out. So he wanted all the money in one shot. And he's like, you really like you to do the mortgage thing. So again, I made a cash offer, but they didn't like that offer. So they forced me to go through a traditional mortgage process, which if I've learned, if you want to like near suicide,
Yeah.
feel suicidal, try and go through as a normal, just single individual, go through the process of doing a commercial loan. It is maddening.
Yeah.
Like if you think your house one is bad, this is
I mean, house loans are also terrible. This is
way
like times 5.
way worse, way worse. And all of a sudden, everything started going up and up and up. And,
Yeah.
like suddenly I needed way more down money. It was like, here's the down money you'll probably need. I'm like, okay, I can come up with that. And then it's like a month later, oh, actually, the percentage is way crazier
And
unless you
also,
put more money down.
Commercial property has its own interest rates that's different from residential.
Way higher.
So you look at residential rates, you're like, that's not terrible. Times 2 is roughly what, commercial is.
Maybe not times 2, but it's
almost times. It's pretty close.
yeah, it's pretty high. So I was like,
It's double digits. We'll just say that.
yeah,
it's not 5%. It's
not-
double digits.
It's not good. So, yeah, so we were like going through that process. I knew from the get-go when I did it that it was going to be difficult to get a mortgage on this property because it's old. It's kind of like if you were looking to buy like a foreclosure house that needs a gut and total redo. Like you can't just go and get a normal mortgage. You got to get like a special type of mortgage, which is a little more difficult for the average person. I only have my house, which I have a mortgage on, and the shop and stuff, but I don't have like other properties I own that I can leverage. So,
And the biggest thing too we were trying to avoid with a mortgage is going back is the flood insurance.
yes, the
Because
flood.
one of the real estate agents that Matt went with owns a building in that area. He like moved money around to pay the property off to get rid of flood insurance because that's how expensive it was every single year.
Yeah, he owns there's an apartment buildings. There's like an old building he had turned into apartments. That literally is next door. And he put my mind at ease because he's like, I took my flood insurance off by paying the property off so that I didn't have to pay it. He's like, I have tenants in there. Like you would think if this place floods, I wouldn't be able to take flood insurance off because their belongings will get flooded. So I was like, okay, I feel better about we're not going to get our inventory flooded. But because of this bullshit 100-year floodplain in that area, we had to, go through that process. So going through the process, it was a month or more of me being probably the most stressed out I've ever been in my life.
He was a little cranky at times.
And I was constantly on, like, I also am terrible at, like, I got out of the whole corporate world conference call,
Yeah.
email bullshit, and then I'm like times 10 with all this. It's like,
You were on the phone like every time I'd look out, he's just sitting on the steps, looks defeated on the phone, like ready to
bitching at somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. And I had a good dude that was helping me. It was like
He actually saved us some money.
Yeah, the mortgage
Broker.
the mortgage broker guy was actually pretty good, and he was trying to make it go through, but the cost kept going up and up and all this stuff. And then it was like we were about to do the commercial appraisal, which is $5,000.
It was like 5 or 8, I think.
$3,000 or $5,000 for a commercial appraisal to get the mortgage for commercial. And which again is bullshit. Why is a commercial appraisal so much money? other than they just want to reach in the
Yeah,
pockets
exactly.
of whatever. So right before we were about to do that, I got approved for finally through all the stuff. They were like, yeah, we can approve you to blend on it.
Yeah.
XYZ showed all the documents for business stuff of, income and all that. And then they were,
All of this, and they haven't really looked at the property. Like,
I don't understand this bullshit.
didn't look at like photos of the property. And
They
then,
look at like anything. And all of a sudden it's like we get an insurance guy involved.
yeah.
And he goes, you guys can't lend on this property. And then everybody finally looks at the property.
Oh,
Photos
shit,
of the
you're right.
fucking property that I've been talking to them about for ages, and they go, "Oh wait, this is really old." No shit, it's the oldest building. It's 1853. What
Yeah.
the fuck? I'm like swearing on the phone. I'm like, man, that building's like in really rough shape. I said, no, yes. I had inspectors.
It's 5 miles from less than 5 miles. I've been there many times. I understand.
I emailed you the
Don't-
inspection report that shows you all the shit that's fucked up on the property. And they're like, oh, well, you probably don't need to do the commercial inspection because the insurance company isn't going to do a full coverage on the property like we want.
Yeah.
Because the one building is so old and needs so much repair, they just won't do a full coverage. Think of it like your car.
Yep.
A brand new car off the lot, you have to put full coverage on it. You can't do minimum coverage like I have on my hoopty pickup truck, that's paid off. So that was the problem. So basically they were like, kind of stopped everything. They're like, we can continue, but like, we're going to tell you it's probably going to get denied with the underwriters. And they're like, okay, well, I appreciate you saving me $3,000 or $5,000 on the appraisal.
Yep.
So we went back to the owner and the real estate agent representing him and was like, look, the only way I can buy this is if you do the cash offer I made or we do this.
So the original, we'll take a step back. The original seller finance was we make normal mortgage payments.
Yep.
And then after, what was it, 10 years?
10 years there was
7 or 10 years, and then you make what's called a balloon payment, and you pay off the remaining balance by either getting a mortgage yourself or paying it all in cash.
so that the seller wasn't, because of his age, he wasn't interested in a 10-year. He's in his 80s, I think. So he wasn't interested in a 10-year type deal. So I came back and said, look, I can do tomorrow, pay you this dollar amount X, or we'll do an aggressive payoff and we'll raise the dollar amount of the payment.
Yeah.
It's, a 3-year mortgage, and it's, me running the numbers like shit, it's a stretch, but like we can do it. And you just got to buckle down. I can't keep every piece of speed equipment we buy.
Or every 32.
Every 32. I can't keep everyone?
No.
Not all of them. So
Some of them, just not all of
not
them.
all of them.
There was a stretch there where we were keeping just about all of them.
Everything. So that's why, if you watched all my stuff, any of my friends that have known me for a really long time, I've done this since before I even owned a house. You'll see me start to sell off interesting stuff or things that, top shelf stuff. And you're like,
I used to text before, we worked together and really good friends. When the Volkswagen stuff, I'd see like rare Volkswagen shit pop up, and I'd send him a message and be like, what are you buying? Not even ask him like, what's going on financially? Do you need help with money?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, people are never worried about me because I've always kind of handled my business.
Yeah.
Like it's fine.
I just want to know what you're buying.
What are you
There's
buying?
Something good.
There's usually something good. So a couple of my friends that know me for a while like text me like, "Yo, what's on the horizon?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Are you having a midlife crisis or what's going on?
Yeah. So that's why I listed a bunch of that stuff for sale.
There was a post that went up that there was 4 project cars and 3 like done cars, Pagoda City Coupe, Stroll car, and the 38. And there was a bunch of people that were like, are you guys okay? Like, what's
going on?
Is Matt, people were sending me messages, like people that haven't known Matt for a long time, like fans are like, is Matt okay? I would never thought he'd sell any of those cars. Like, there's some stuff we're working on, trying to be as vague and broad as possible.
Yeah. And I've always said it with this stuff. There's cars that I would never sell, and there's cars that if something happened, I would sell them. It's just, it is, cut and dry. They're still investments, and I would, move them on. So I put all that stuff for sale, not because I wanted to sell it all, but I just didn't know what people wanted to buy that day of the week.
Yeah.
So pretty quickly, stuff started to get spoken for. So I was like,
and we were working on, we still at that up and down
mortgage stuff.
Well, also we were like, is he going to take the cash offer? Because we got to sell some stuff to have the cash ready on hand instead of bluffing.
No, I wasn't bluffing. It wasn't necessarily bluffing. It was, I need to make everybody's paychecks every week.
Exactly.
A lot of it was like, I couldn't run myself down to like we had $15 in the business account.
I do not work off of IOUs. Steve may for a little bit.
He works off cigars, maybe.
Yeah.
We could just confuse Steve for like a month of not paying
Here's
him.
a box of cigars.
Look over here. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Conveniently not be around every Thursday for like a
Just
month.
in the afternoon for a week.
Yeah.
Just like, I got an appointment. I got to go. Okay, see ya. Bye.
See you later. So we were gonna try and raise some money, and not that we were trying to bluff. It was just more like needed to make sure that the funds were available, and also the other thing was happening is the closing costs with these mortgage companies and all this real estate in general.
There's a lot of other people you need to pay.
It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
So I will say this: we're not talking dollar amount. The closing costs, not my down payment, or was close to $30,000 for all the involved associated costs from the mortgage company and all this different stuff was roughly $30K. So that's why I was like, shit, I need to sell some
And there was
cars.
like insurance for the underwriting. There was like insurance for all these processes, and it's like $1,000 for that, $2,000 for that insurance. It's like, what do we need insurance for? We're closing on the property. Like, I don't need insurance that you're not going to show up.
Yeah, exactly. So then when we was all said and done and we were doing this seller, we ended up doing seller financing. I was very lucky that the seller was very reasonable and, wanted to get it sold. And obviously I was serious. It was $1,600. So think about that.
Yeah.
How much are we all getting fucking ripped off by real estate mortgage companies, real estate agents, everybody. I don't say my agent was like that, but like there's all these costs and stuff. And even like
It's more of real estate as a whole, not necessarily agents.
I'm not picking on anybody, but the whole process, the buyer and the seller get fucked hard. Like everybody, all the other people have their hands out that don't really need to be involved. If we went back to the old school, you just paid a lawyer to write a contract that was legally binding and two people worked together, it would be very low cost, kind of like I did. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, for what I was buying, it was like $1,600 cost. I think there was like a title insurance, which technically on this property probably could have almost waived, but like it's still a good thing to happen where they basically are making sure that if there's some sort of lien on the property that nobody knew about, I wouldn't get fucked, kind of thing. So there was that. But like other than that and the cost to transfer the deed and all that stuff, it was like $1,600. So I'm like, all that money I was planning on like having to have for the mortgage. Now it's like, okay, well, we could start putting that into the property. Like that's what's messed up is like I would have dropped all this money and been in the same state, but like $30,000 poorer.
And while going through all of this property, we had to fly to Oklahoma and buy and pay for that stuff that we already agreed to buy before this process started. So it's like there's a chunk of money we have to put aside for that. And then we knew we had to go to Minnesota at some point coming up soon. So there's a chunk of money for that. And it's like, how we got to like keep this money this side, but also still buy a property and start fixing it. And
Moon and I had a conversation. I'm like, Moon, buddy, a lot of people want moon puppies.
Yeah.
You might have to put in now's the time, buddy. I need to call in a favor.
Start selling off your...
We got to start selling off moon puppies.
Oh,
so
boy.
he and I had a talk, but luckily...
Actually, we could probably pay the property off. Start selling moon dog puppies. We'll do pretty good.
Heck yeah.
He's just asleep on the
He's
floor.
asleep on the floor. He doesn't know any of this is going on. But so yeah, it worked out really great. That the seller is a super nice guy, and he it was really neat hearing from him some of the stuff when I was there doing the inspections. He was talking about different things they did with the property and gave us some insight. And then we ended up buying it, but it was one of the hardest things not to tell everybody what was going on, and I'm terrible sometimes at keeping secrets. So
yeah, we told a handful of people. It was funny because we were going through the process and we mentioned some close friends, and then the mortgage stuff, we were like, I don't think the property's going to happen.
Yeah, there was a week or two where I was pretty much like, all right, well, I got a whole
it.
bunch of money put aside and I don't need it anymore.
Let's go buy some shit.
Let's go buy some cool shit.
He was like sending me cars on Facebook. He's like, look, this just came up for sale. It's like, we gotta...
Yeah, I was having like my midlife crisis. Like, man, I always wanted like an Mercedes SL 500 AMG V12, sports car.
I forgot you sent that to me.
It's like a $50,000 car. I'm like, I should buy that instead. Like I was just going off the rails.
Money on hand is a bad thing sometimes.
About to go off the rails.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, so it ended up working out, and we did all that stuff, and then so fast forward to now, a lot of people have been asking what what we're planning to do.
Yeah,
And,
so the plans changed a little bit. They're always kind of the same, but the main floor of the mill, where the grain bins are in that loading dock area, we're gonna try to make it a little bit more of a nicer retail space, like an antique store kind of. We were originally,
showroom
yeah,
and
like that office area. We were originally gonna try and do some run the business out of shipping, and then we've decided to move all that to the lower level, the basement, because we can fit all of our inventory downstairs. It's actually more
all of our inventoried
Yeah.
or yeah, like for sale, like we still have pallets of overstock.
Yeah.
So just like our stuff that's on our shelves in the pull bar.
Yeah, so now the downstairs of both buildings, the original feed mill and the newer portion, is actually more square footage than we have now.
And that's
in the
just
pole
the basement of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
building. Yeah.
So we can easily fit everything in there, and we're not going to put sheet metal, and we're not going to put transmissions and rears down there. It's just going to be the handheld. It's like smaller items would be down there. So there's more than enough room just in the downstairs.
Yeah, so that space we're going to also make very organized, make the shipping area down there like a table. There's an office down there because they were running the actual agway out of the basement. So there's an office in there. There's a little window for like a counter area with some stuff for like a printer and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously like it works out really great because all that whole area is all pegboard. So it's like we can put so much inventory down there that's already set up. And we don't really have to do a lot. It's clean. It's dry. We just have to sweep and cobwebs a little bit. It's got
change some lights to LED, and really that's the basis of what we need to do.
Heating and air conditioning down there that just needs some tune-up, but it's all there. So that made more sense. Where the upstairs is like the area that I kind of started thinking about. It's like my upstairs here for me. It's like everybody that comes to visit the shop, they always are like, this is the area where I take everybody for the grand tour. And everybody's like, wow, it's crazy. And I've kind of handpicked all these old cabinets and stuff's laid out real nicely. So it's like if we could have an area that people could come and that stuff's for sale, because everybody comes up here and I go, none of this shit's for sale. Don't even ask about it.
Yeah, and
officially.
And what really changed your thinking too is because you bought the property on a Monday. Then that Tuesday you went to Brimfield and you were going in and out of all these antique stores.
Well, yeah, first thing we did was it made me kind of think about is we picked up the Australians from the airport. And then we drove right from the airport. There's a place near us called Heartland Salvage.
That's right, yeah.
They do a lot of the salvaging of old barns, commercial buildings. Not really commercial, but mainly like industrial salvage of old barns and buildings in this area. I guess they have contracts with a lot of like construction companies and stuff. So they have a whole business where they're basically selling old wooden beams and old door handles and all that stuff, and they do really well. They're selling the interior designers and stuff. But what they also do is like once a year they do like a spring yard sale, for lack of a better term, for like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They open their doors. They have a lot of their smalls and like cheaper stuff is out there, and you can go, and it's like a flea market. Well, their property is like, I guess it was an old gas station.
I think so, yeah.
So it's a real old gas station. They now have like old visible pumps out front. They restored the one old building. There's old signs. It's like an amazing. Every time we drive past it, I'm like, that is such a cool property. Yeah. And they run their same kind of deal as us. Like normal days of the week, you don't really walk in there. I'm sure they do have a retail space, but most of their sales are working with B2B with other businesses that are then restoring old buildings and stuff. So I went there and started walking around, and actually was walking around the property. I'm like, man, this is so cool. I went down in the one building where the retail space is, and it's like they had like the spinny bins with all the like glass door handles and stuff. I'm like, man,
we should find a spinny bin or two for the basement. They'd be helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. So
side note.
and upstairs.
Oh yeah,
would
definitely.
Be really cool. So that started making me thinking that we went to Brimfield. We were going to all these antique stores because our Nick and Nadia are really when they come to the States, they really like to go to antique stores and vintage stores and flea markets. And Kate and I were just like, we did a marathon of a week of just way more antiquing than I probably
do in a year.
Yeah, in a year, in a week. But we were going in all these old buildings. I started realizing like a lot of these antique stores are set up really cool. It's an old factory or an old building. I'm like, we kind of have that. Why don't we do that area where it's a shoppable space, but it's also like a cool vibe when you come there. It makes you want to go there and hang out or just look for fun. So the other thing is we also have so much cheap, small kind of not trinkety, but
Yeah.
like collectible stuff that like even if you're not a car person, you'd enjoy. Like we sell that stuff at Carlisle and Hershey, but like the rest of the year, like old little oil cans and model cars, like we don't even really list that stuff online because it's so low dollar amount that we just don't have the staff to list every single thing online. So like this would be a place where we could put that stuff on display, and if somebody walks in and wants to buy a neat old hot rod model car for $10, there it
And
is.
some of that stuff's very dependent. People like oil cans. People want to look at it and
Yeah.
see that where the dings and dents are. And it's like, just we'll have a shelf full. And when we do Hershey, you go up and just take a few, take them
Yeah.
with. And when you come back, they go back on display for retail sale.
Yeah, so that's kind of the plan for that. We're going to have to cut some of the feed bins out, but we're going to keep a couple. We're going to keep some of the old equipment that's in there because it's really cool to look at and try to make it more of an open floor pan. The other cool thing is with the loading docks there, we can basically make ramps and put cars in there. So if we want to put a car that's for sale, or maybe it's just a neat old jalopy or an old, maybe if we get an old hot rod that's beyond fixing, we can just put it there for, you know,
Or car bodies. Say we find another 32 Roadster body, just pick it up. If we have the forklift there, we build ramps. You just put stuff up in there, and it's a better way to display it.
Yeah, even if you're not interested in buying it, it kind of adds to the motif. So that's where we're basically at. I don't know when this comes out, but
Sunday.
So before the other video.
Yeah.
So we went just recently to Maryland to an old closed down antique store, an old early 1900s hardware store.
Yeah.
And they did this kind of the same idea as us. So we went there, they invited us there, and we bought a bunch of old store fixtures, some stuff that's from the maybe 60s, and then also some stuff that's maybe from like the 40s that is for that. I've already started looking on Marketplace for old glass cabinets. So we're going to do, upstairs and downstairs will have a cool vibe to it. So I think that's part of the whole allure of everything we do, whether it's the cars, everything we do. It's neat that it's all old stuff. It just is way cooler and also in the end, it actually ends up being cheaper because if we went to like, where do we get the boxes and stuff? Or not the boxes, the supply, like office.
Uline.
Uline. If we went to Uline and bought like gondolas, it would cost more than the property to outfit the building. So like $2,000 a gondola or whatever it is. So like for what we're buying this neat old stuff for, it's also way more cost effective.
Yep.
Again, like everything, we have to put more work into it to take it down, transport, set it up. But for me, that's part of the fun of like, it's going to have this cool vibe. And we always talk about everything we have has a story. So even our fucking racking is going to have a cool ass story about it. And we have a video showing us doing that. So that's the idea for the upstairs. All those other buildings that are peripheral, we're going to work on fixing them up. We're going to utilize them for space. They're not going to probably be available for the public to go into, just for safety reasons. We don't want somebody climbing up a janky ladder, or whatever. So all those buildings, luckily the second floors have like sliding doors for loading, hay or whatever into the barns. We can use the forklift and just put the stuff up in there. Somebody buys a fender and we need to get it down. We can just put the forklift up, put it on a pallet, bring it down, and give it to somebody. And that'll be the best way to do that. But so that's where we're kind of at. So if you're local and you have neat old like oak, store cabinets from a 5 and dime, or we even bought a super cool, like I guess it's 30s or 20s cash register.
Oh, no, earlier.
Might even be early 1900s cash register.
An actual national cash register.
Like old, wood-sided
with
glass,
the push buttons.
The glass top with the brass buttons. So killer. Works.
Yep.
It's like that's all the stuff. If we have a storefront eventually down the line and you have somebody that's staying there, hanging out, it's just neat. The whole allure of all that you're pushing the buttons and it's like, ding. Like,
yep, exactly.
Something's very satisfying about that. So that's
we're making progress.
Well, honestly, like everything we do in the 3 weeks we've already had the place, the amount of stuff that we've already started picking up for the place, already the stuff that we have lined up for improvements on the property.
Next week we have a guy coming out to fix the roof.
Yeah, the one building that's
two buildings actually.
Yeah, two of the buildings. So a lot of the buildings have new roofs on them, but two of the buildings need repair, just resealing. It's not that they're like the roof's falling in. It's just that they need repair. So we have some repairs and stuff that already we're trying to move and get done. So it'll be cool to start seeing, some movement happening there and start fixing up the buildings and all that stuff. So be a lot less keeping on my end of parts and
just cabinets we'll be keeping.
Cabinets and stuff.
We got a lot of display cases we need to fill in the buildings.
But luckily the stuff's pretty affordable.
Yeah.
I'm being frugal, and you wait for the right cabinet on Marketplace for $200 instead of $2,000.
Yeah.
What's crazy about all this stuff is the prices are like, there's no rhyme or reason. You see one display cabinet that's $2,000, and there's another one just like it that's $200.
Oh, if anyone has any display cabinets they'd like to donate to the IronTrap feed mill.
Yeah, the Mill Museum.
Yeah, please.
Future location of the
We don't need pegboard anymore, but we do need display cabinets and spinny bins.
spinny bins. Yeah. Neat old, like any of that stuff that was in an old hardware store, Five and Dime, any of that. We brought a neat old Fruit of the Loom, like clothing gondola, for lack of a better term. That's really cool. Like all that kind of stuff we're going to put around, because it's just way cooler to have old parts and old stuff on old shelves.
Yeah, exactly. It's all got to be old.
It's got to be cheap, too.
Yeah, cheap.
Cheap or free.
Is the key word here.
Right now, we are being frugal as possible. So that's kind of a rundown on everything. We'll probably keep doing updates on podcasts and videos.
Yeah.
Just because it's a big part of telling our story.
Every week in the life of video, there'll probably be some sort of mill update in the video, because that's what we've been doing every week.
We didn't film we replaced a sub pump today.
That's right. We forgot to film that.
Yeah, so
replaced the sump pump, fixed the water line, did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's been
the other day we'd fixed a bunch of other stuff while we were there too on Tuesday.
Yeah, just like the cars, small victories. That's how I'm attacking it. So I'm just doing small stuff. Put a gutter. Evan and I fixed a gutter on the one side of the building that was overflowing. You saw in the video. Now there's a downspout, and it
looks great. You guys did a great job.
And it's not splashing all over the doors. So now we can reside those doors that are rotted out from water damage. So it's there'll be improvements. We're not millionaires, so it's not going to be something where we're just going to have some, like, just like the cars. It's not going to be like these renovation TV shows where the crew comes in and in 2 weeks they totally gut and redo the
part of our crew's sitting right here watching us film this podcast
from the TV show.
Yeah,
George is going to come in and we're going to totally gut the mill and redo it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, let us know when you're done. We'll be back with the TV crew and cut. It's all done.
It's all done. Come back.
George is just like falling over in the corner.
So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So we're really gonna be cool. So we can't wait for the day that we can actually start having. The other idea is that we can have like a Cars and Coffee there. We can do. People have asked us about doing our own little like flea market or swap meet. So this will be like a great space that if we want to like once a year do like a car parts
cleaning.
Yeah. We can do a spring cleaning, but we also have a flea market at our spot if people want to do a swap meet type setting.
Yeah.
A IronTrap barbecue, people have asked about us doing like a little cruise in type event. We can do all that here, but give us time. We got to get the property up to snuff before we start doing all of that. So
baby steps.
Or if you're a construction guy or somebody that wants to trade labor for like a Model A project or car parts, we are very open to trading inventory or cars for work. That would be a great one. We're definitely gonna be doing some trading with George to get some of his help.
George's pickup truck might be done by this summer.
Yeah. We're gonna be doing some trading, just like we do with all our friends. Pete was the same thing. Pete helps us out a ton with not labor but parts and knowledge, and that's why we helped him out. So that's how it all works. That's how this hobby. That's how
stays alive.
Life in general seems to work well. So that's all we have for this one. Thank you guys for listening and watching. If you are listening to this, there's not as much visual on this one, but it is. We now have it on YouTube that you can watch the podcast as well as listen. So thank you guys. We'll catch you next time. See ya.